Live, you are live.
5 seconds.
Good morning, wherever you happen to home it is. My name is James Henry, you are with WildEarth TV, and this is Safari Live. On camera today we have Viam. Hello Viam. Viam is in summery outfit today because today apparently there is going to be something of a heat wave going through here. That's what the weather said. They've obviously never actually lived here, those people from the weather. We live in a heat wave here in Leopard. It's currently supposed to be 17 degrees or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 17 Celsius, and yeah, probably not too far off that, but as the sun comes up and I can feel it starting to burn on the back of my neck, I think it's going to be an absolute scorcher today. On the other vehicle is Brent Smith. He's with John Dre, and in case you are wondering how on earth or what on earth we're talking about, you're on a live safari here in the wonders of the western sector of the Kruger National Park, iconic national park that the world has heard about and visited for many, many years, since 1926. I'm standing on a termite mound, and that's not simply because it makes a nice stage for me. Just next to my right hand, jump in, is a chimney, out of which quite a lot of metabolic heat is coming, and I can see a whole lot of termites. I'm just going to... The air that comes out of here smells the most tremendous earthy, delicious healing smell, I find. And a termite mound at this time of the year is particularly wonderful because it's the time of year when the termites start to come out, the royals, the flying ants as many call them. They're not ants of course at all, they are termites, and they come out at this time of year because we've had some nice rain now, and they'll start to come out and they'll start new mounds. Millions and millions of them will never come close to starting a mound. What will happen is that males and females will fly off. Females will land, she'll flap her wings like this and exude a pheromone which will travel off into the ether. And if she's lucky, a male will come and find her, and then they will mate and they will dig under the ground and they will perhaps start a new colony like that one there. But of course for millions of them, that doesn't become a reality. Some of them don't get further than just outside of the mound. They'll be eaten by frogs and birds and that sort of thing. Some of them land and possibly never find a mate because the mate can't find them. Others will be eaten by lizards, and still others will just die of starvation eventually. But for those lucky very few, I mean the percentages, the chances of success if you're a royal termite are so minute. But for those, that very tiny percentage, probably 0.001%, I would say, will create something like that magnificent castle of clay behind me. Now, you are on a live safari, which means you can talk to us in live. Hashtag Safari Live if you want to tweet, or questions at wildearth.tv if you want to email to us. And how it works is that your email or tweet will go through the final control where Tara Dales is twiddling the knobs and Jerry is fiddling with the keys, and they will feed them through this earpiece, which is going to be plugged in now, and then we'll talk to you. And it's a marvelous system, this, because as we drive along through the wonders of the Kruger, hopefully finding various bits and pieces of interesting fauna and flora for you to look at, you can talk to us as we go. Now, Viam also pointed this out, and thank you, Lynn, for that. You can see the heat waves coming out of that little chimney, and that's because there's so much moisture at the moment. It's a coolish morning. Well, I can feel that sun starting to burn already. It's a cool morning, and of course because of the amount of moisture there is in the air in the termite mound, as it comes out it condenses, and that's why you can see it. So we've had lots of rain in the last few days. I'd say we had about 20 millimeters 2 days ago, and then I'd say we had another 10 or so yesterday. So probably 30 mils or so, maybe just a bit less than that. So it's about an inch, between an inch and and a bit more than an inch. And that will bring out, it's already causing a flush in the grass, which is excellent for the grazers. And it's also made the air very sticky. I mean, my hands feel pretty sticky. Liam, your hands? They're always Liam's hands are always sticky because of the amount of breakfast he brings with him on game drive. Nothing to do with anything else. And of course, Liam and Jean-Dre, for those of our regular viewers, have just returned from their holidays, fresh, full of excitement for being back in the Kruger Park. Liam is sporting a new hat, sort of denimish blue, very nice. And thank you all for your very kind welcome backs to all of them. So my plan this morning is to head down. I've come on a road called the Weaver's Nest, which is pretty much in the center of Djuma, which is the property that we spend most of our time on. And we drive down here because there were some leopard tracks seen not too long ago in this area. I'm hoping that we might find evidence of either Karula, maybe even Patile. She's a young female leopard who tends to spend most of her time quite a long way south of us. But I think because there has not been a lot of leopard activity up here, it might have been her that came through here the other day. And maybe she'll quite like it here and hang around. That would be very nice. We haven't had a decent leopard sighting on Djuma for some time. I know Shadow, for those of you who are regular watchers, of course, a 9-year-old female leopard has been on a kill on Arathusa for the last day or two, which is excellent for her. And her mother, Karula, the 11-year-old, we don't know where she is at the moment. So perhaps she's around. But we've had almost no male leopard activity on Djuma itself for, I'd say, almost 3 weeks now. So it would be very good to have some of that. So we're going to drive around these sort of southern sections, round about where Mvula, who's one of the territorial males of the area, used to hang out quite a lot, hasn't for a while, hoping he will come back soon, especially as his son, Quarantine, seems to be hanging around in his area. So I'm sure they'll have to share the area quite carefully. It's a glorious morning. But like I say, I think it's the light starts off very soft, but on these days that are going to be really hot, what happens is that it kind of burns out very quickly, and what that means is that golden light of the dawn seldom lasts beyond, sort of say 20 minutes after sunrise. It was a very loud dawn chorus this morning. What we'll do is we'll go onto the dam wall here at Treehouse Dam, and then we'll listen to the dawn chorus. Here we go. Hang on. They had a leopard here last night, apparently. I'm just going to get an update for that. Tingana and Karula were here last night. Right here. Try and find them right around here. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll pull up onto this dam wall here, stop and have a listen. I'll explain this to you now, everybody. Oh no. Station with who had those 2 leopard at last night. Please can you just go again with their last position and direction? I'm getting it in my ear. Okay, thanks very much. Alright everybody, so this thing here is a radio, of course, and it's the game drive radio, and it's in communication with all the other game drives that are around. And Johan from Buffelshoek, who's a landowner up there, says that he had Tingana and Karula round exactly where we are now last night. So we'll try and follow up on them, and wow, it would be great to see them again. Interesting that they were together again. That suggests that she did not fall pregnant the last time they mated, which was really not very long ago at all. It was about 4 weeks ago. And so maybe she will come into estrus quite quickly again if she doesn't conceive. So let's just have a quick listen to the dawn chorus and perhaps the growl of leopards mating. Many doves calling. And while we are listening to the call of various birds here, we've got a tawny flanked prinia, we've got some ringneck doves. That's beautiful. We've got some starlings. Mark and Diane, you were listening to the Djuma Dam cam earlier, and you say you heard red-chested cuckoos and black cuckoos and starlings and all sorts of other birds, orange-breasted bushshrikes, and that's wonderful. It really is quite a dawn chorus today. Look up, just look in the tree here. Do you see some weavers there? If you do, there they are. Are they weavers? They're the first ones I've seen.
They look weavery.
They do look weavery, don't they? Franklin's calling. Emerald spotted wood doves. Now the reason I've got so excited, they're on top of the tree now. They are weavers. Finally the weavers have arrived, I think completely uncoincidentally with the rain that we've had. I think there's a little bit more moisture around, and so now they're going to start weaving their magic little nests. Yes, I can just hear the chick, 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 chick. That'll be the village weaver. We won't spend too much time here with them, mainly because I want to go and check on the leopard, but also because they will be, they're not quite in their full glorious yellow summer plumage, and they haven't quite started building yet. Right, let us go. Wish us luck. We are going to go and find Tingana and Karula, I hope. Now the difficulty, of course, tracking at this time of the year is the fact that the rain, and combined with a bit of heat, puts a crust on top of the road, and animals which are not heavy, like leopards, don't leave very obvious tracks. So we need to be very careful about how we drive along and make sure that we are looking at, make sure that we don't drive over the tracks. I managed to do that yesterday with some lion tracks. Leopards are, less than half the weight of a male lion. And then the other update I got on the radio there, everyone, was that the Birmingham boys have crossed south at Twin Dam, so they came through Djuma and then they went down south towards Mala Mala, again leaving a vacuum here in Djuma. They've hardly spent any time. One of them crossed through yesterday morning, and I think he's that sort of independent one that spends most of his time on his own, and then the other 4 came through here and went down south yesterday evening. And if you're wondering where on earth Brent Leo Smith is, Wendy is giving little trouble again this morning with her signal and stuff. She came back from the hospital. She seems to be driving okay, but Eugene is now trying to fix the signal so that he can take a drive as well. So for the moment, I'm afraid it's just me. Well, and the magnificent bush around us, of course. So we can drive slowly like this, hopefully pick up some tracks, and not too long thereafter, hopefully 2 leopards together. We'll check very carefully on the roads. Go back to when we were looking at the termite mound while we're looking for these leopard tracks. And good morning, Chris Rogue. You want to know how many termites an aardvark can eat in one sitting? Chris, wow, I don't know. Hundreds. I think they can eat up to sort of 2 kilograms of termites at a time. And 2 kilograms of termites, of course, would constitute termites only that big in the mound like that. Of course, termites vary in size quite considerably. But, so let's say a termite weighs half a gram. Yeah, what do you think? A gram, half a gram? Okay, so in 2 kilograms, we're looking at about 4,000 termites in a sitting, I'd say at least. That's quite a lot of termites. Now, the leopards were found apparently on this junction last night, and they went north along the drainage line, the radio report said. Now that's due north there, and there is absolutely nothing in the way of a drainage line there. So let's just look very carefully along here, and we'll check Twin Dams Road as well. There also, you'll see me doing this every so often, and it's because there are a whole lot of spiders around the place, little spiderlings. And I was listening to the autobiography of David Attenborough the other day, and I'm sure you're all familiar with his wonderful voice as he narrates some of the world's most spectacular natural history for the BBC. And David Attenborough talked about spiderlings and how a spiderling is a baby spider, of course. They come out of their eggs and then they climb to the top of a grass stalk or a tree, and they sit there and they let out a strand of silk from their spinnerets. And that strand gets longer and longer and longer and longer until it catches enough air for them to fly off. And that's called ballooning. And often, if you drive around like this, you will be hit by silk, and that'll be the spiderlings that are just ballooning around trying to find a place to stay. And sometimes those spiderlings apparently can get caught up in the wind and travel to up to 20,000 feet above sea level. Now that in meters, if you divide by 3, is pretty high. Call it about just under 6,000 meters. That's 6 kilometers up into the sky. Not quite as high as Everest, but not far off. So just carefully checking the road for tracks, checking the drainage line. You can drive past a leopard with great ease because they are very well camouflaged, of course, and the bush is pretty thick now. This time of the year, you've got to be particularly careful when you're looking, because the trees have all got their leaves, the grass is starting to come up, so it's pretty easy for animals to hide around here. There's been a lot of debate of late about the virility of Tingana, and in fact one of our viewers accused him perhaps of firing blanks. He and Debbie in Ohio, you're now wondering if there's something wrong with him, that he keeps hooking up with these ladies and seemingly failing to impregnate them. Debbie, I don't know. I must confess that I think it's quite possible. He's now mated with Karula. I think this will be the 3rd or 4th time without her falling pregnant. I think he's definitely mated with Shadow twice without her falling pregnant. The first time Sindila, her young 1-year-old cub, was still around, so maybe she wasn't really coming into a proper estrus. It's certainly, the evidence is starting to suggest that young Tingana is perhaps not physiologically all there. And while, I mean, when you watch them mate, it is interesting to see how, and this is not uncommon, I suppose, with leopards, where the female's got to kind of seduce the male, and it looks like he's not interested at all. But Tingana really doesn't look like he's interested. It's always a huge effort for her to make him mate with her. So, I don't know, maybe his testosterone levels have dropped off for some reason. Maybe there's some dietary deficiency. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see going forward. We're just driving very, very slowly here, so I'm trying to see if I can pick up the tracks. Maybe a sound or two, checking in the boughs of a tree. Many people think that leopards are arboreal, i.e. they live in trees, which they don't. Lying in a tree, you should actually try it sometime. You've probably seen those classic pictures of leopards sort of draped over tree boughs. Normally what those pictures don't show you is the fact that there's a dead antelope hanging just next to them. And that's when they like to be in the trees, when they have something to stash away. But actually lying in the trees, I don't believe is that comfortable for them. And you should try it. They look very comfortable. If you lie down in a tree and hang your limbs over the side of it, it hurts your sternum. It's difficult to get comfortable. So they're not arboreal unless they've got something to eat, or unless they feel very threatened, and they'll go up the tree. Liam is on to his third cup? First. Oh, he's only having his first cup of coffee as we speak. That's because the kettle didn't boil this morning. He would normally be on to his 3rd or 4th. Lots of baby hippo tracks along this road, which is quite odd. Nothing in the way of male and female leopard tracks heading up the road. So apparently they were supposed to be in this block somewhere. Now, if they are mating and they have eaten, then the chances are they won't be moving out of the block too soon. So we'll just keep a beady eye on the road, and also stop every so often to have a listen. I like this road at this time of the year because it's cool. It's quite low down, so it doesn't heat up quite as fast as the rest of the reserve. But I think come 8:30, when we wrap things up, it's going to be at least sort of 27 or 28 degrees. That's 82 in Fahrenheit. And by 2 o'clock this afternoon, apparently it's going to be pushing 40 degrees here, which is about 105 or 6 degrees Fahrenheit, so pretty warm today. That'll be made worse by the fact that we've had the rain, and so there'll be a lot of evaporation and moisture in the air, much humidity. Now, I think an excellent suggestion from Georgiana in Illinois. Maybe Karula and Shadow should go and look for Mbula. He's not too far away. He's at Nkoro. Now, he's been at Nkoro and Torchwood for the last little while, in fact for months. and he's kind of, you can see his tracks sometimes crossing here and then they disappear out again. But this area that we're driving around in now has had a complete dearth of male leopard activity for many months. And rather than them going there, Georgianne, I think he should come here. I think that would be a far better idea, and I really want to see him again. I've seen him sort of twice. Initially when I got here, twice, and I thought, well, this chap we'll watch often. And he then disappeared. I think probably because of pressure from Tingana. He's not a huge leopard, old Mvula, that's why I quite like him. There are some hyena tracks. I was getting hopeful briefly there. And I think that he should come back here. I think he'd have a good time. Plenty to eat. There's some impala there. He could eat them. They look like they'd make a good meal for a male leopard. There's not much other male leopard activity around here. We have a pretty drainage line, lots of nice trees. You've all heard the birds calling this morning. It's very attractive. A couple of good nice viewpoints for him to look at. Coral doesn't have many viewpoints. I mean, Djuma is perfectly set up for a young male leopard to enjoy. Untapped real estate as far as the leopards are concerned. So I have not seen any tracks. Obviously I haven't. I would have shouted and screamed with great joy if I had. Plenty of hyena going down this road. Let's just stop and have a listen here. There's a hornbill there we can look at. And the hornbill's got a little friend next to him. A rattling cisticola. Now we don't often see them. We hear them all the time. There, that's him there. And you will recognize him because he's almost unrecognizable, given how totally drab and brown he is. He's what is known in birding parlance as an LBJ, a little brown job. You see how red his face is? Everybody, he's got a red bill, but also very red around the face, and that, I believe, is an indication that mating is either about to take place or has taken place. That's the red-billed hornbill, obviously because he has a red bill. A little territorial call that he's making there. That is the sound of the black-crowned chagra. Alright, can't hear any vociferous growling from any... Ooh, hang on 1 second, let's go forward very slightly. What have we here? Those are all hyenas. Yeah. They're all hyenas. I saw a whole lot of footprints on the road, everybody. I'll show you what I was looking at. Yeah, you see these ones? You can see here it looks like a large pawed animal has walked down the road, which of course it has, and this is a hyena. And from where you're sitting, you won't be able to see exactly the difference between this hyena and the leopard track, but it is very distinct. The most obvious distinction is that this hyena track has got 4 claws in it, and it's kind of messy. A hyena track is kind of squashed together. The toes and the back pad look squashed, and they're kidney shaped. And a leopard is the most perfect kind of symmetrical paw print, and the toes are slightly exploded away from the back pad, and they just look very neat. They feel like leopard tracks, and the hyena ones feel like hyena tracks, kind of messy and Right, I'm going to go down here, so then we would have circumnavigated the block where they were seen last night. Lovely smells as well, very subtle. Sweet bits and pieces of flower that you drive past. They just touch the air with a very pretty smell. Now, many of you have been watching the developments of the two almost 3-year-old cubs. Well, they can't hardly be called cubs anymore, I suppose. Sub-adult, Kunuma and Quarantine, who were born to Karula and Mvula a while back, or 3 years ago. And Siberia Zumi, good question. What are the chances of them becoming dominant in this area? Siberia, I think it's highly unlikely that they will become dominant in this area and then mate with their mother, A, and B, their auntie. No, not their auntie, their sister. So Shadow is their sister, or half-sister, as far as I'm aware, and Karula's their mother. Now, the chances of them mating are small because Mvula and Tingana, the two dominant males of the area, are still in pretty good nick. Mvula looked a little bit ropey at one stage. His eye certainly bugged him a bit, but he didn't really lose condition, so I think that he and Tingana will remain dominant here. Normally the males move away from their natal territory to avoid that kind of inbreeding, but it's possible. It's not impossible that they should inbreed, and it also is not particularly detrimental. Good question, Siberia, but I think the two males are in pretty good nick. That said, I mean, there's literally nothing going on here in terms of male leopard activity, other than, I mean, Tingana has come in to this area. I haven't seen him around here, but I've seen him around the Juma Dam, of course, when he was mating with Shadow a little while back. Here we go. Yeah, that's the lion from yesterday. Male lion track from yesterday. Unfortunately, not as the Leopard. Now, what we did see a little while back, let me go back down this road, Jumpy. What we did see a little while back, of course, was Karula mating. She probably hasn't conceived, or she's trying to mate again, and so Raisa in Finland. If you want to know when will they come back into estrus, I think pretty much within the next 2 days, so not 2 days, 2 weeks. So when they mate, the male and female will be together for 5 days or so. They'll mate probably 5 times an hour for those 5 days, with probably brief breaks of a few hours in length while they eat or go hunting. And then when she comes out of estrus, she'll move away. If she doesn't then conceive, I think it's been 3 weeks. 2.5 to 3 weeks since we last saw them mating, and she's back in estrus now if they're mating, so that's not unusual. She'll keep coming into estrus probably at 2 and 3 week intervals, but for her not to be, after 4 efforts at mating, for her not to be pregnant now is quite bizarre. Either she's not ovulating, or, as we said, Tingana is not functioning as he should. Given that older Shadow also has failed to fall pregnant to him, maybe he has got some troubles. I don't know where these guys went, especially if we're right around where they were supposed to have been seen yesterday. I have not seen one track. even I, who isn't the greatest tracker in the world, should have been able to pick these up. Anyway, we'll keep looking. Once we've done this loop around, we'll go back towards Treehouse Dam and then up towards the western side of the reserve, see what we can pick up there. Now, apparently, how unsurprising, Wendy has decided that she doesn't wish to go on game drive this morning. She's a bit like a sort of celebrity, Wendy, who, you know, performs on the odd occasion when she feels like it. So Brent is going to be going out on the bushwalk with Chandra, and as soon as they're up and running, they'll give you an update as to what they're doing. Right, I have seen absolutely no evidence of any leopard in this area, so I think we're going to move in a slightly wider arc now. Right, so we keep using the term drainage line, and I was shouted at the other day by our erstwhile Commander-in-Chief, Graham Wallington. He said to me, you can't use the term drainage line because nobody knows what it means. And I told him he was being silly. Well, I didn't say it like that, I was much more diplomatic. And Ken, in Australia, you've just asked, what is a drainage line? Is it a naturally forming riverbed? So I eat my words. I think it is a term that we use out here, and I actually remember when I started in the year 2000 out here, I remember being confused by the term drainage line. It means, Ken, is absolutely, it's a naturally formed creek or gully. It's basically a dry riverbed, dry stream rather than riverbed, and sometimes they will flow after huge amounts of rain. But so we're driving next to one now. I'll show you what I mean here. So this is a drainage line here, and you can see there's no water flow in it, and there would only ever be water flow after a sort of flash flood. And leopards love to walk along drainage lines like this because of the trees and the shade afforded by those trees. So Ken, in Australia, I don't recall ever hearing from you before, so if this is your first contribution to our show, thank you for it, and please keep talking to us. So this is indeed a drainage line, a dry riverbed, a dry stream is the best way to describe it. Thank you for that, Ken. Thank you for putting me in my place. This is required, it is so on. Sorry, I've got a question through here. It's a good question, I think, from Donovan in Maine. Unfortunately, I missed the question because the dear Tara in Final Control got a little tongue-tied on the word testicular. It's about rattling testiculars. Tara, I'm afraid you're going to have to go with it again. All I got was testiculars. Oh, I see. Right, Donovan, you want to know if the testicular actually rattles when it pulls. It does. It goes choo choo choo, da 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 da, choo choo choo, da 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 da, and that. I'm not doing it very well, but that last little bit sounds like a rattle. If we hear one, I'll show you what I mean. Testicular, Tara. Say it 10 times. Testicular. Sometimes also known as testicola. Yes, and that's called throwing the director under the bus. It's not a very clever idea, because she, of course, would far more in the way of control than I do. Liam, have you seen leopard tracks? Being very quiet back there.
No, it is zebra.
Zebra. I don't know what this guy was talking about, I must say. So you also saw, I suppose, when we came past this little dam called Treehouse Dam earlier, no water in it yet, and that's after 30 millimeters of rain. So I think we're going to probably need about 100 or so before they will start to collect and hold water. There's no question that the rain we've had will have raised up the water table, and that will make a big difference to the grasses, especially. They're definitely flushing a lot more than they were 2 days ago, and a hot day like this is going to make them do even more. I also think that there's going to be an explosion of dung beetles. There are some impala, given the absence of any other kind of animal to look at the moment. Let's look at the beautiful impala streaming through the bushes. Two males on their own, which is not particularly usual for this time of year. Lovely. And the dawn chorus is already starting to calm because the heat is building. Now I want to show you something interesting on the front. I'll roll back a little bit. It's not going to have a happy ending, the story, I'm afraid. I'm going to show it to you anyway. I was talking earlier about the termites when we started. Here is a new termite mound. So 2 royal termites have gone down, managed to make a little bit of a hole in the ground here, and they've started a new termite mound. Unfortunately, they've picked a particularly stupid area to do it, so I don't think they're going to survive very long. I will drive around them, but inevitably someone is going to come down the road and drive over this little termite mound. Isn't it a dinky little thing? The 2 of them will be underground now on honeymoon, in the process of trying to start breeding. And I'm afraid I think their little honeymoon is going to be the last part that they play in the ecosystem of this magical area. Poor little fellows. Well, one fellow, one felless. Right, so let's go around the side of them. Good luck, chaps. Well, you know, as with people, never say never. There might be particularly stoic termites can move to another area. I don't think so. Remember, they lose their wings almost immediately. I'm just going to get an update from Taxon. Go ahead. Folks, I've done a whole block between Weaver's Nest and Twin Dams, Elephant Skull and Chelapan, and I haven't seen one track of those 2 leopards, so I'm now checking Savages back towards Philemon's Catline. Okay, copy that. I'll do Philemon's Cutline and then Zoe's. Is that, where are you checking? Okay, copy. I'll do Finn's Road then. Alright, so interestingly, Taxon is in this area, and he says, sorry, that's of course you're looking at a Steenbok there. And the tracks Taxon found them. They're in an area we haven't driven today, and he's now checking around here. So we're going to go and join him. We'll go the other way around the block, and maybe we'll pick something up. And it would probably be a pretty good idea to send Brent into this area too, because he'll be on foot. But I don't know if they'll get signal here. So that's a little steenbok who didn't think that we'd seen her, or him, her, no horns. And they're known as steenbok, stone buck, because they lie down like that, like stone. So just to give you an idea where we are, you've got quarantine clearings around where we started, then you've got a whole slope down from there that heads towards Philemon's dip, or Philemon's cut line, and we think that the leopards might be in that area. The track's headed into that block, but like I say, because of the crust on top of the soil, it's very difficult to try and pick up what's going on. So Brent is going to come into that area on foot. So that's the best way, of course, to be looking for leopards. You don't have the noise of the car, and you can also see the ground a bit more easily, but you can't cover as much ground. So we'll keep driving slowly along. It's a lovely morning, this, but not a cloud in the sky. Those little termite mounds that we were looking at, they only take probably a night to construct the little the new royals, and eventually, I mean, if they survive, they'll turn into that. And that to me is just an astonishing thing. They start off as those tiny little things, and they're actually all over the road now. I've seen many of them. Some of them in the middle of the road and totally unavoidable. The lucky ones will end up in a great big mound like that. Oh yes, I have lots of ballooning spiders attached to me. And lots of you will be saying, oh, that's terrible, spiders. Most spiders out here are completely harmless. In fact, 90% of them. There are some beautiful things. Look at those that just popped out. Wonderful. These, everybody, are called crinum lilies. Lots of different species of crinum lily that we get here, but these ones are particularly nice. Oh, and the smell is absolutely delightful. Got a game drive coming up behind us. Good morning. Good luck. You should smell those flowers.
Yeah.
The big thing, if you ever come out here, you will undoubtedly come out here to try and find things like those mating leopards, or the elephants, or the buffalo, or the other huge animals, the giraffe, wild dogs. But to drive past something like that and not get a sense of its unbelievably nice smell, well, I just think is a waste. And they smell like, if you could, I mean, they smell a little bit like the lilies you would buy at a florist, I suppose, just a lot more subtle. Everything out here, smell-wise, well, the flowers, they tend to be a lot more subtle. And that's because, of course, they're not selectively bred for their smell at all, but just the sweetest, most lovely smell. One day, they will be able to transfer smell through the internet, and then I'll be able to more accurately describe what it smells like. It's kind of a sweet lily smell. I don't know really how else to describe it. Right, on we go. That was Ephraim who went past us, everybody. He's come into the area to try and help us track the leopards. Brent Leo Smith is hailing me. Go ahead, Brent. Yeah, affirmative. Thanks, Brent. So Brent is going to come down into this area now, and I'm sure he'll update you as he goes along. He's with Jean-Dre. I'm inspired by that lily. Now again, we're just going to keep driving at this very sedate pace. Right. Brent Leo Smith, the inimitable, highly enthusiastic and big-footed, is ready to tell you what he's going to be doing. He's somewhere in this block here. I'll see you a little bit later.
Hello everyone and welcome on the Sunrise Walking Safari. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Jean-Dre on camera. We are now in this area where the last set of those mating leopard tracks were seen. Obviously, being on foot without having that engine noise, we're hoping to actually catch audio of them, which will make it quite a lot easier for us to find them. Other than that, we will try to find some tracks. And what we're listening for is a very strange sound. If there are any new viewers who haven't seen the mating leopards before, they sort of sound like this. So a very, very strange sound, and we're hoping we're going to be able to hear that and hopefully find them on foot for the vehicles. So there's this drainage system up ahead of us here, and that's where the last set of leopard tracks went into. So we're going to be walking very slowly and very carefully, seeing if we can find them. It'll be really, really exciting if we do manage to find them on foot. It is possibly one of the most exciting things you can do on a walking safari. So we're listening for lots of different things. Not only are we listening for that very strange noise, we also listening for different alarm calls. So even a bird can give away a leopard's position. So we're coming through the edge of this seep line now. You can see all the silver cluster leaves in front of us. There's a nice open patch there of good grasses, and the head of that little drainage line is there. So we're going to systematically work our way down the whole drainage system, hopefully with some luck. So you're going to stay with us just for a little bit as we pop through these trees. You never know, we might see the leopards out in the open on the other side. So after that little bit of rain, seeing tracks is going to be a little bit more challenging, and that's why it's much easier for us on foot to be able to see the tracks. We can obviously take our time a little bit. We're much closer to the ground, and we can check very, very carefully. So up ahead here is the head of the drainage line, and here it flows from the west to the east to about there, and then at the bottom end of quarantine it cuts south. So we're going to start up here and work our way slowly through there. It does look like we're looking for a needle in a haystack, but hopefully with a little luck and some experience we'll be able to find them. It's really awesome being on foot in the early morning. It is one of my favorite times of the day. All the different birds calling, and lovely fresh smell, a little bit of moisture in the ground. As we walk, we're listening very carefully. So while we're in search of these mating leopards, there's been some questions about the virility of poor Tingana, and Yana is wondering, can a female leopard sense if he is virile, and if not, will she move out and look for a different male that might be able to impregnate her? Well, Yana, even if he isn't virile, she will still keep mating with him. The reason for that is that because her cubs might be born in his area and she might spend a lot of time in his area, she will always mate with as many males as possible so they all think that they're the daddy. So even if he isn't virile, she will still mate with him, so he will think those are his cubs. And to be honest, I don't know whether a female leopard can pick up virility in a male. A very interesting question, something definitely worth pondering. But regardless of virility, she will mate with him to ensure the safety of her cubs. Look, just stopping and listening every now and then. At the moment, all I can hear is green pigeons and rattling cisticulars. Also, with all the leaves coming out of the tree, as much as it would when there's no leaves on the trees, so we have to listen a little bit more carefully. Fortunately, there's no strong wind at the moment, so if we do hear it, we can pinpoint it quite easily. But while we carry on and head down into the drainage, we're going to go see what James has got.
Now, Brent is not far from where we are now, but we are not alone here. There is a massive elephant bull in front of us. We're just trying to sneak a bit closer to him without irritating him at all. He is a good sized bull. He's probably 6 tons worth of pachyderm. Swaggering through the bush here. There you can get an idea of him. Stop here. He's very conscious of us. And he's just feeding through here. Look at him, isn't it wonderful as the sun catches him? He's a huge fellow. I will try and get another view for you now. Let's just see where he moves. He was lurking in this area, not moving too much, and then suddenly he decided that he was going to seek out something to eat deeper into the block. So let's just see what he does. I think what he's probably looking for is a stand of decent length of grass. Let's go around him a bit. The sun is not ideal for us here, but what we don't want to do is ideally we don't want to crash around in the bush too much, irritate him, so we want to stay standing where he is. Go around a bit here. Watch your head here, everybody. Watch heads. Don't put your hands out. You might get caught with thorns. Now responding. Astonishing to watch an enormous animal like that walking so comfortably through the bush and so silently where we struggle. I mean, this car probably weighs less than a sixth of what he does, and yet he's just kind of floating through here, and we are making an enormous noise. Now we're about probably 50 meters from him, which is roughly 170 feet or so, and you can see he's still filling up the frame. He is massive. I'm trying to see what he's eating. Well, now he's eating some combretum, but he was picking quite selectively a few bits and pieces off the ground. Sorry, the reason I've gone totally silent is I'm listening to the radio. Yeah, nothing, no updates on the radio. Let's just go a little bit forward. We're in this area where the leopards were, so it's a good idea to just be moving here slowly and listening carefully to see if there isn't any growling. And if you've never seen leopards mating before, they make a huge noise. Okay, now this is a very good question coming through from David in New Jersey. Thank you, David. I haven't been quite clear enough. David, you want to know about Ephraim. We saw Ephraim and you said, does he work for WildEarth? And if not, why is he trying to help us find the leopards? He isn't. David, we share this reserve with a number of other commercial safari operations, and Ephraim is taking a game drive. He works at a place called Cheetah Plains, which is to the south of Juma, where we operate, and he works there as a safari guide, and he and his guests are driving around here, as you are my guests. So he has 6 guests with him, and he's looking around for the leopards. He wants to show them to his guests. Isn't that beautiful? Let's just move a little bit forward again and see. He seems to be relaxing with us now. Angel Lady and Barbara, who asked about his tusks and how long are they? They're not very long. they're certainly quite pointy at the end there. You don't want to be on the sharp end of one of those. And you want to know, is he... Oh, Barbara, you say one of them looks a bit worn down. Yeah, his left tusk does look a little bit shorter than his right one. As you probably know, they can be left and right tusked, like you are left and right-handed. And so he's probably worn the left one down a bit. I think they're also different angles, and that's just a genetic, not anomaly, but certainly a genetic predisposition to having slightly different, you know, they're never quite symmetrical, but they're not huge tusks by any stretch. I just can't really get through this patch of bush here. I think we might just go back to where we were and wait for him to finish eating where he was, unless we try and sneak through here again. The reason it's so difficult to maneuver in a relatively open block like this is because the elephants have made such a mess. They come in the winter time and they push all the trees over, or a lot of the trees, and then you can't drive around. So they really are very messy eaters. They do not wash up in the kitchen at all. We're quite close, but well, very like Brent. I didn't want to say it, Ben, but I'm happy you did. Now we're pretty close to him now. We've closed the distance to about 30 meters, 90 feet. So let's just see how comfortable he remains. If he gets a little uncomfortable, then we'll probably move off. But he's now making short work of a ziziphus or buffalo thorn tree. He's a magnificent bull, this he really is. And his tusks, sorry, Angel Lady, I just said his tusks weren't very long. I didn't tell you exactly how long they are. The exposed bit are probably only 1.5 feet, so not very long. But they, of course, go all the way into the top of the brain, or into the top of the skull, not quite into the brain. So that, you know, at their full extent, they're probably about 3 feet long. But as far as tusks go, they're not very long. Now, look at that, isn't that wonderful? I was just reading about ivory the other day, and in the 1830s, when ivory hunting was particularly, it was the sort of peak of the ivory hunting that went on in this area, they were exporting up to 250 tons of ivory a year from this area. 250 tons of ivory. That's 250,000 kilograms of ivory were being taken, shot out of this place by the middle of the 19th century. It is unsurprising, therefore, that when the Kruger National Park was proclaimed in 1926, or its precursor, the Sabi Game Reserve in 1910, there were almost no elephants left in the area at all. I think there were 8 or 10 left. Now, the reason these chaps with these kind of relatively small tusks are the most common elephants here are because those hunters and traders in ivory shot out all the big tuskers, and their genetics have long since died in the populations here. He's still a magnificent fellow though. So, just because of what I've been saying, you can tell that it's probably not possible to age an elephant from his tusks because they are so variable. So Tina and Lucy, Tina, you're in California, good place to be, and Indiana, where you are, Lucy, I've never been there. Sounds like quite a nice place to be, I must say. Probably a bit chilly at this time of the year. So you can't age an elephant by his tusks. I suppose by the wear and tear on his tusks you might be able to get an idea. But the best way to age an elephant is from his size and his kind of body condition and any tears or rips there might be in his skin. I think this elephant's about 30 30 to 35 years old. He's a good sized bull, pretty much in his prime. He's not in must. Now must, of course, is their time of mating, their time of breeding, and he is not in that particular time. That's why he's so relaxed with us here. I hope he's going to remain so. He seems to be pretty chilled with us for now. So he's definitely watching us very carefully. He's huge. He's absolutely huge. I'm just trying to give you an idea of how big he is. At the shoulder he stands, he must be probably 10 feet. He's probably 10 feet at the shoulder, maybe even a little bit taller. And he's flapping his ears like that to stay cool. As the sun starts to heat up and warms his head, so he will flap his ears to cool the blood that is pumping through the veins in his ears, and that blood will go to his brain and keep his enormous brain cool, and that of course will operate the rest of his bodily functions. The heat is already starting to build. Look at the glistening ivory in the sun there. And he's eating so subtly for an elephant. All elephants can feed very subtly if they like to. You know, they can pick up individual fruits off the ground with that dexterous trunk with its prehensile tip. Trivium will show you now. You can see the end of his trunk has got two little fingers on it. There they are. Amazingly delicate if they want to be, and incredibly brutal and indelicate if they don't want to be. And he's being tremendously confiding with us. We're pretty close to him. We're about 25 meters to. And he's just feeding quietly, taking almost no notice of us. That said, he will be watching us quite carefully. Despite their immense size, elephants can often be quite threatened, or feel quite threatened. And he's just smelling us. Now, Brent Smith, as he may have told you, has just been in the Kruger, and he had some wonderful sightings. It's still a great place to go and visit there. You've just seen now why his left-hand tusk is a bit more worn than his right. He uses it to pick branches. Siberia, you said you want to know in the Kruger if there are any... Sorry, I'm going to get back to you now, Siberia. Brent is hailing me on the radio, and because he's on foot, I'm going to just get hold of him. Go ahead. Brent, I didn't know you were following an elephant bull, and Moore is just off Finn's Road. I'm watching him now. Yeah, he's quite a way off the drainage line still. Copy. So Brent's just asking, he's looking for the leopards, but he found some elephant bull tracks, and he wanted to know how close this elephant bull was, which is good information to have if you're knocking about on foot. Siberia, you want to know if there could possibly be some elephants left from the 30s in the Kruger. No. That would make them 85 years old if they were born in 1930. So it would be highly, highly unlikely. An elephant's age in this area is limited to 55 to 60 years, maybe up to 65. 85 would be a real push. And And remember, when I was talking about those tusks, it's the 19th century, so in the 1830s and 40s is when it hit its real peak around here. By the time the Kruger was eventually proclaimed, and I mean the idea behind it started in 1898, but even by then there were almost no elephants left in this area. They'd been hunted out. And we had a question the other day from somebody about local people and their effects on wildlife populations. They had an almost completely negligible effect on wildlife populations before the white man arrived with his guns. And the interesting thing is, of course, that conservation is a tremendously contested space throughout the world, especially in South Africa, and not so much now, but it certainly used to be. Look at that unbelievable trunk, eh? And it's a contested space because so often indigenous peoples were excluded from wildlife areas, but they actually had a very negligible effect on the wildlife. It was the very people that proclaimed the wildlife areas that caused the problem in the first place, and so that's why it tended to be a very contested space. Less so now, but still very sensitive areas, and you've got to be very sensitive about dealing with what can be tremendously sensitive emotional issues. Oh, he's just magnificent. Enjoying his Saturday morning brunch. There you can see him using his tusk. Yeah, he's using that tusk as a kind of lever to snap off the branches. I love the Twitter handles some people have. Granny Billy Joe in Florida. Granny Billy Joe. I think that's a marvellous Twitter handle you have there. And you're in Florida, where I think the weather is always nice, isn't it? So it's probably quite similar to where it is, to what it is now here. And you want to know if elephants, or is it true that elephants get bigger as they get older? It is, and they grow until they die. Actually, it slows down a bit as they get towards their peak years of 60 and 65. But you're absolutely right, they do get bigger and bigger the older they get. And this elephant is smelling us all the time. His nose is every so often twitches towards us. And I think we're probably going to, we'll watch him a little bit longer. You can see that he's going to probably melt off into the bush now. And while he's doing that melting off, you may have even been able to hear him sighing and breathing. And Janet in Maryland, you say you've read that an elephant bull, or an elephant, has its lungs attached to its ribs. And you say it's one of the only mammals that has that. And could that be a hangover, if you like, from its sort of distant evolutionary past, when it was related to whales, perhaps, or to oh, okay, let's quickly go across to Brent. He's also got a bull elephant, but he's on foot. See you now. Sorry, we had to crash cut back. I thought that might happen. Alright, so, Janet, the elephant's just wandering off through there. You think, and you're asking, would it be an adaptation to water pressure, to being able to deal with water pressure? No, I don't think so. I think it's an adaptation to the fact that the position of the lungs in the body, and the fact that if you are attached to the rib cage, it's probably easier to expand the lungs. When we inhale, of course, we do open up our chest cavity a bit, and we drop our diaphragm, and that expands the lungs. I think it's probably a similar adaptation in elephants, but because everything's so much bigger, it probably helps them to be attached to the lungs. Remember, and Steph and I were discussing this the other day, remember that the cetaceans, or marine mammals that have ended up in the sea, mammals on land didn't develop from them, it's the other way around. As far as we understand it, cetaceans were mammals that went back into the sea. So unlike the reptiles which developed from fish that came out of the sea, the cetaceans are mammals that decided that they didn't like it too much on the land. They went back into the sea and adapted to conditions there. So it's not the other way around as far as we understand it. Okay, I think we're going to leave this fellow and we'll head back towards roundabout where those leopards were walking. Nobody's had any luck with them, but we'll keep looking, and it's certainly getting pretty warm out here, isn't it, Liam? I think it's probably sitting already at about 26, 27 degrees. Right, what a lovely sighting, and I just find it so precious when elephants are prepared to let you sit next to them like that. They don't react to you, they don't approach you, they just get on with life, and as if to say, well, nice to have you, don't mind me, I'm just going to carry on eating. And I think that's just such a wonderful relationship to have with them. Alright, let's get out of here. There's a little loop through the block on the off chance those leopards are sitting in the marula tree close by. Stop and look at these lovely birds. Park in the shade. Look at them. Those are the magpie shrikes. And just listen to their call. Isn't that amazing? It's like the woodwind section of an orchestra sort of warming up and tuning up. Alright, let's go back to Brent. I think they've sorted out the technical issues and he's still with that elephant. We'll see you now.
Well, you never know what you're going to come across when you're walking after leopards, and I know James is with a nice big ellie bull, and we've got one of our own here in the drainage line. The bush is quite thick here, so we're not going to try approach him, and he's just get his ears flapping there behind the bush. There he is. You just see those big ears, cooling himself down. It is going to be a scorcher. But unfortunately, no leopard tracks yet, no sound of leopards mating yet, but we're in the right zone, and that's what's important. You can see, nice big relaxed bull feeding. Unfortunately, we are right on top of a termite mound in the middle of the drainage line, So as soon as we drop down, our signal's gonna drop, but we're gonna carry on, and we are hopefully close to these leopards now. This is this thick drainage system that they're possibly hiding in, and mating leopards really like to spend their times in drainage lines. Cool, good place to rest. So we're gonna keep on sneaking in and out of the drainage line, seeing if we can find the leopards and maybe some more elephants. You never know. That's the most amazing thing about being in the bush. You actually don't know what you're going to find around the next bend.
Hello everyone again. Sorry, excuse my rude... Oh. I think that is. We almost just spotted a weird piece of dung. Let's pick it up and have a look. This is Leon. I don't want to touch it because lion dung is the most disgusting thing in the world. Let's see if we can spike it. There it is. That is the hair that has come out of a lion's bowels some time back. I'm not going to put my nose to it. I'm not going to get anywhere closer to it than I am right now. As you can see, the hair is indigestible even to the acidic stomach of a lion. And I've actually just uncovered a sort of carrion beetle. I'm not going to pick him up either because he will be covered in what this was covered in. And a little beetle that makes its living eating disgusting things like lion dung. I'm so glad I wasn't born one of those carrion-eating, lion dung-consuming beetles. That would have been a greater miscarriage, I feel, of justice. I suppose if you are one of these that believes in reincarnation, you've probably done something pretty appalling in a previous life to come back as a carrion beetle and spend it your entire short adult life sitting under a pile of lion dung. Yeah. The road is not far from us, but I cannot find a path through. There we go. That will get us through to the road. There's not so much elephant mess in this particular area. Oh, look at that. Can you see him, Jim? They will all be out after the rain. Not a leopard, but a leopard tortoise. And he is moving stealthily, not that a tortoise can do anything else, towards the shade. He's heard us coming, hasn't decided quite. Nothing is... his fairly dense tortoise brain has not managed to figure out if we're a threat or not yet, so rather than disappear into his shell, he is attempting to move with the speed of a chameleon towards the shade. It is amazing how if he doesn't move, he blends right in. Looks like a little stone. There. Isn't he lovely? We'll try and get a little bit closer to him. Don't want to provoke any kind of aggression from the tortoise though. You know, a tortoise can be a terrifying thing when it's in full charge. So just to reiterate, I mean, you could pick him up quite successfully. He'd probably be absolutely fine. But what they do sometimes, if they feel very threatened, is they empty their cloaca, and that's the kind of their bowels. Basically, they empty their bowels, and they lose a lot of water when they do that. And because they need water, it's often not very nice, very kind to pick them up. There he's sticking his head out a little bit. Unfortunately, he has a grass stalk right across his eyes. That is most inconvenient. I'll just push the clutch in, move a bit. That is the most irritating grass stalk in the history of grass stalks. There you can see his eye and see him blink. Come on, blink, tortoise. No, not going to blink today. You can see nothing happens fast with tortoise. Tortoise is an ideal animal for what we term slow TV. I think that much like most of the rest of his days, he will have a very chilled one today, especially as the heat builds. Right, that was the leopard tortoise, one of 2 tortoise species we get here. I saw the other one, the Speaks hinged tortoise, the other day as well, but it was just after we went off air, and they've got a lot flatter shell. Now, many people know that around here we have a spectacular fruit known as the marula fruit, and many trees around here called marula trees. And Andre, you want to know when they fruit. Andre, the one in camp is actually started to fruit already. That's very early for this area. It's normally January and February that the fruits come in this particular area, up in Palabor, a bit north of us, where the original Amarula cream was made. Do I want to be going this way? Yes, I do. Where the original Amarula cream was made, they fruit now. At Christmas time, you can buy Marula beer on the side of the road. Marula beer is an entirely disgusting substance unless you have grown up drinking it, but all of the local people around here have grown up drinking it, and they enjoy it very much indeed. And there's an enormous kind of a hiatus in general activity with Marula beer season, and that's pretty much now up north, and it'll be a bit later, probably January, early January around here. But the one in our camp has already started to fruit. They're certainly not ripening yet, they're very green. And the odd tree that we could find around here will probably have green marula fruits on it. So what we're going to do now is head towards the western end of quarantine clearings and see if we can't pick up any more tracks of those recalcitrant leopards. Our elephant bull is in here somewhere. There's the aerial, coughing a bit of a beating from a bush willow tree. It's still a very pleasant morning to be out, I must say. Very fresh smelling still. So we've talked a lot about mating leopards and mating lions and inbreeding and who breeds with whom and why and where and how and how is the inbreeding possible and how does it affect the animals. And Country Girl Ash, along those lines, an interesting question: how do leopards inbreed? First of all, and secondly, if not, how do they tell their kin? they do inbreed to a certain extent. I think less than lions do, but certainly they can manage to do it and without any deleterious effects on the offspring. And I think that they recognize their kin through smell. I think they've got highly sensitive noses, and I think that they can tell the kind of pheromones of familiarity. Same way. Ooh, some tracks. Sorry, I thought you meant that I'd run over a hyena. I didn't run over a hyena, everyone. I ran over a rock. Viam's just checking on the road. He says it's got some tracks here. Say when? Quite good, this cameraman, isn't he? What do you think it is? You think it's a leopard? I'll just have a quick look. Okay, we can't see from the car, so I'm not going to show you, but I'm just going to have a quick look myself. Actually, I'll get back to your question now. Whereabouts?
Right here. More right, you bastard. On the bank.
Oh, there. Yes, hyena. Well spotted. So actually, I think they can tell their kin through smell. I think that's the key thing, and I have no doubt that when you give your family a hug, assuming that you aren't estranged from them, as some people are, you can smell that familiarity. And I'm pretty sure that the leopards with far more sensitive olfactory senses than ours, I'm quite sure that they're able to smell kith and kin far more effectively than we are. So that's how I think they do it. I also think that sometimes males are conned into believing that certain youngsters in their area are their own. I think Brent's heard something. He just said switch off the engine. No, I haven't. Confirm you got audio. Alright, I'll go look there now. I'm not too far. Okay, so Brent is in this drainage line system here. He's quite far from where he thought he may have heard some growls of a leopard. So we're going to go there and he'll keep walking down. He's very close by here. Right, on we go. So drainage line system, a whole system of dry streams going along here. So just to finish my thought there, and I've said this quite a lot, but infanticide, of course, has always been a major thing for mammals, and unrelated males killing offspring of what they believe to be other males. And then also, of course, those males or females then trying to con males into believing that their offspring are theirs. And I think sometimes that definitely is the case. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we see these female leopards mating often with more than one male during a single estrus cycle. And certainly, I mean, we don't know if this is possible yet, but multiple paternity. I'll get back to you now on this point. Ah, yeah.
Hello. Hello, we had veggie here, there's Ingrid.
He says that side. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to drive that road there.
That's long, 10 rounds.
Okay, cool. All right. Ah, yeah. Okay, in the color. Shlogo, she got his shlogo shaway. Who's Kumakui? Okay, that's one. Alright. It Tirilla in Coveni, Mara Nuna it really Fama Minengele. Yeah. So Anti Viloku. Rita Jigala, Guna to Trekla. Ita Jigala, Ita. Okay. That man is wearing a tortoise shell on his head as a hat, and I find that quite odd myself. Certainly quite heavy. I'm a bit astonished. Oh, and there's a nice, interesting thing to see. It's definitely ours. It's Brent Smith. Brent Smith is now. He does not have a good record over the last week or so with the vehicles. Or the bushwalk pack. He's lost a hubcap in the Mahindra. Right, let's move on. So, I was just going to finish my thought there. There was an interesting postulation from one of our viewers who said, is it possible that leopards could have different fathers in one litter? Now, they have not proved this yet, but I think it's definitely possible. And one of our viewers said, well, if you look at the different personalities of Kunuma and Quarantine, the two offspring of Karula and Mbula, if you look at how, well, supposedly Mbula, if you look at how completely different their personalities are, that's not that unusual, but they also look different. They look very different. And so is it possible that they have different fathers? I think so, absolutely. What it does is ensure their survival. Both territorial males in the area are less likely to cause them harm if they believe that either of them are their sons. I hope that makes some sense to you. Right, we're now round about the area where Brent thought that he had heard the growl of mating leopards. He was a little bit far away though, so he wasn't absolutely sure. Mr. Tortoisehead is just behind us, following. A little bit astonished. Have you ever seen that before? Like we always say, you know, if you come out into the bush and spend long enough out here, you will always see something that you've never seen before.
I'm getting mine tomorrow.
Are you getting yours tomorrow? You're not going to harvest it from here. Driving along here, listening intently, of course, the obvious question is, are there any things, well, maybe it's not so obvious, but Chris in Arizona, you asked a very pertinent question of, are there any mammals or birds that are completely silent? Chris, birds-wise, there are a few mammals that are completely silent when they are here. Things like the steppe eagle, the European cuckoo, birds that don't mate when they're in this area, that migrate and mate elsewhere in the northern hemisphere, they tend to be completely silent when they come out here. That's not because they can't call, it's because they don't set up territories here and they don't breed here. So they don't need to sing to attract mates. So Chris, birds, some, yes. Mammals? No, I don't believe so. For many years we thought that the giraffe were totally silent. We now know that isn't the case. They make a variety of sounds, some of which we just can't hear. So that leads on to the fact that just because we can't hear a mammal making a noise doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't making some kind of a noise. You know, they could be either too high, which would be ultrasonic, or too low, infrasonic, for us to be able to hear with our range of hearing. Here's a hinged tortoise. Here's a hinged tortoise. Look at that. So everybody, there is a Speaks hinged tortoise, the other tortoise species that we get here. And I just want to keep him away from the chap behind us in case that he decides to make an additional accessory to his headrest. So what's interesting about this chap is that he has got a very small hinge, which you probably won't be able to see from here, but just in front of the front leg. Sorry, Brent's calling me. Go ahead. Okay, copy, we're on our way there now. Okay, Brent has had some more sound of the leopard mating. They're not too far from here, I don't think. Sorry, every time I turn around I'm slightly surprised by the headrest. Okay, so Brent is astonishing. Brent has said that he's heard the leopards mating closer to that big drainage line that goes down the middle of the reserve called the Ululwati, and so we'll head there at a relatively good speed, and hopefully. Now, of course, this is the great advantage of being on foot, is that you can hear what's going on. I'll tell you what, if he manages to find them on foot, that'll be a wonderful experience for all of you. Steve and Kadria, you want to know what language I was talking. Well, Steve, you want to know what language I was talking there. That language is called Shangaan, or Tsonga, and it's the local language here. And Kadria, you say that a previous WildEarth presenter, Rexon, used to wear a tortoise shell on his head. Well, maybe I should try it. You know, as they say, don't diss it till you've tried it. It's just maybe it's the lack of familiarity with it. I think I have actually seen it before. In fact, you know what? I've seen a picture of Rexon Mtimane with his tortoise shell on his head. Okay. Right, now just down here with any luck. Okay, so Brent, let's get Brent's idea. He's got some fresh dung in there. I think he wants to show you. Well, let's go across to him. I'll continue along here.
So we're getting intermittent audio of these mating leopards. It sounds quite far. It also looks like they've done almost a half circle and are heading back to the east. We found fresh dung in the drainage line. We've got the tracks that the guys were originally following this morning. We just heard the mating leopard sounding probably about 1 kilometer from us, down towards the Mwati. So we're going to keep walking slowly and listening and try to direct James into the right area. And we have now abandoned our car very far away, so we might even have to get a lift to get back, but it's worth it if we can find these leopards. So I'm not even sure which leopards they are. And just still checking the drainage line just in case they're like right in one of those deep gullies and it's making the audio sound like it's further than it is. So it's quite steep around here, so that's why we're checking from the high ground very slowly, very carefully. We've got tracks all around just behind us there, but the tracks are going in the opposite direction to where the audio is. But mating leopards don't seem to stick to a plan. They can jig-jag, zigzag. Still listening for alarm calls from birds or squirrels. And it is getting really, really So what we're hoping for is that hot stop moving so much. For the sunset safari. Going back to James. Between the two of us, we'll have some leopard luck.
So there's a buffalo, obviously, that's not a leopard, but we're right in the area where Brent thought he heard those leopards calling. So it's best that we just stop and listen for a little while and see if we don't hear them mating again. Now, if you've never heard or seen leopards mating, it's a pretty violent affair afterwards. As he dismounts, there's a huge amount of growling. All you can hear at the moment, of course, is the yelling of the ring-necked dove. Such a lovely call. So we'll sit here for 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to turn down towards the left-hand side of your screen, which is where the drainage line falls, and see if there aren't any tracks coming out there. I haven't seen any tracks of leopard. Vian thought he may have seen one, but because the road is so hard, it's very difficult to tell. Alright, I haven't heard anything further. Brent is on foot, so we can unnecessarily hang around. Because it's getting so hot now, I'm going to go past them. Let's go down into this drainage line area here and see if we can pick something up. Lots of buffalo here. We'll just drive gently through these buffalo bulls. I'm just going to give Efrat an update from what I heard from Brent. Hi, here. How to hang? Waarom twele Brent? Okay, man, kan jika latang geneng kovin. Okay. Okay, so sorry to get in your way. Huge herd of bulls, but they don't look particularly disturbed. So if there are leopards around, the leopards are definitely, of course, they don't pose these buffalo any threat at all. Laura, in Minnesota, I did mention rain earlier, and you want to know if we're affected by hurricanes or excess rain in this part of the world. A hurricane, as far as I understand it, can only form in the Western Atlantic. Buffalo bull is right next to us here, not vaguely phased. We'll just sneak past him. So Laura, a hurricane only occurs in the Western Atlantic. We do get a very similar kind of weather system, and I think it's actually almost exactly the same, and it's just the name that's different. The buffalo will not move out of the way. Come on, just step aside, it's not hard. There you go, well done, old fella. So nice when they're that relaxed, I must say. So off the Western Indian Ocean, off the coast of South Africa, so our east coast, or on the western side of the Indian Ocean, you get something called a cyclone, and that is I think it's formed by the same conditions, and we do get them. They hit the coast of Mozambique, and they can cause flooding in this area. They're not nearly as common as they are up in the Caribbean, but certainly, well, they don't hit us as commonly because we're quite far off the coast, but they do bash the Mozambican coast every year. Don't think they're quite as severe as some of the hurricanes that you get in the US. Now we're going to go down into the drainage line and drive up it and see if we don't hear again. Brent is on foot listening carefully. The other similar weather system, of course, is a typhoon. And a typhoon, as far as I'm aware, occurs in Asia, or Southeast Asia. Similar weather system is called a typhoon there. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Laura, they're all very similar weather systems. Question. While we're driving along and I'm fighting with the various ballooning spiderlings, David, in Michigan, you say you've seen a National Geographic program which spoke about macrophagy in spiders. I'm assuming macrophagy is the eating of one's mother. And do we get any species here that do it? I've never heard of it. I think that's more my ignorance rather than the fact that there are the absence of any macrophagic spiders here. I don't know of any spiders here that practice it though, so I'd be very interested if anybody else knew about it. Sounds like a fascinating program, David. Macrophagic spiders, not sure about them in this particular area. Not a very nice habit, I wouldn't imagine, eating your mother. Of course, from a biological point of view, it makes perfect sense. If you're only going to breed once, which many spiders do, they only breed once and then they die over the course, they'll breed for one season. If you can ensure the health of your offspring by allowing them to eat you, if you're going to die anyway, then why not let your offspring eat you? Quite a clever strategy if you only live for one breeding season, I would imagine. Lots and lots of silk all over the place. Right, so we'll drive slowly up here, and with any luck in the next little lee of shade there will be either two sleeping or two mating leopards. I feel we rather dissed those buffalo. Could have been a very nice sighting of those buffalo bulls. I really would like to see a leopard in June. I've seen one here for some time. Couple on Arethusa of late, but not many here. Yes, I really am being challenged today quite a lot. The dead man's tree, Virginia, you say, what is? I don't know what a dead man's tree is, and therefore I do not know whether we get them here. But if you could give me the botanical name or Latin name of a dead man's tree, I could certainly tell you whether we get them here or not. Sounds like a fascinating tree, but I'm afraid I've never heard of it. So I suspect we don't get it here. How far up this drainage line we can drive before we'll run out of space. Let's keep going for as long as we can. We'll also stop and have a listen just now. That's going to be the end of the road, as it were. That enormous stick in front of us. Let's just stop and listen for a few minutes. Certainly many delightful sounds around the place. None of them the sound of leopards in the throes of passion. I'm going to get hold of Brent and ask him where he is. Brent, come in. Brent, you copy Brent? He's not answering. I suspect because he can't hear me. Hornbills flying overhead. Lovely orange-breasted bushwhacks calling. A couple of crickets. No leopards. Brent, have you heard anything else? I think because we're quite low down, he's struggling to get through to us. Alright, I think we're going to have to move probably from here. Let's give it another minute and a half. 90 seconds, everyone. I know Ephraim has been sitting where he has with those buffalo for quite a while. I'm not sure why he hasn't heard them. I wonder if they're not further towards where Brent is. You see them in there? Okay, now I can hear Brent. Go ahead, Brent. Look at all that silk there. Brent is just talking to me, everyone. Okay, copy. We've come into the Loati. We haven't heard anything further. Okay, copy that. So Brent hasn't found any further tracks. He hasn't heard them again. We're in a drainage line here. Then to the east of us is the road that we saw the buffalo on, and to the east of that is the block where there's the drainage line that Brent is walking in now. That's where he is. He's going to go back to the last tracks that he had and see if he can't get a direction from that. We're going to attempt a 47-point turn in this drainage line and see if we can get out of here. That might be quite entertaining for you. Yes, we won't be able to drive out of here. A great deal of decorum. Now, an interesting comment while we're trying to turn around here. Jeffrey in Texas, you say that wolf spiders often carry their babies and the mother will eject the babies before they start to eat her. Sounds like a very clever idea. And I suspect, Jeffrey, what you'll find is that those spiders that exhibit this matrophagy have evolved from the spiders that don't. And I think a wolf spider is quite long-lived, if I'm not very much mistaken, and that's probably why they don't tolerate it. That wasn't too bad, Biam. We're doing about 3 turns.
You didn't get stuck?
No, I didn't get stuck. Thank you, Edward. Apparently the mother-eating spiders come from a family called Stebrodices or something like that. Not particularly pleasant group of spiders, mother-eaters. Thank you for that. Very interesting. And while we're talking about spiders, Siberia Zumi, you want to know whether we get daddy longlegs spiders here. We do. Daddy longlegs, of course, is not a spider, it's a fly, quite interestingly. Comes from the order Diptera, and the dipterids are flies. So if you don't know, daddy longlegs is a kind of, well, it looks like a spider. It's only got 6 legs, but it looks like a spider. They're very long. It's also got wings on it though. We do get them here in Siberia, quite a lot, especially in our bathrooms. Right, nothing further going on in here. Let's shake things up a bit, drive a bit quicker. So frustrating, you know. So often in the morning we have these kind of exciting episodes, and these animals are so wily. And I think one of the reasons that we struggle as human beings to find them like we do is that we can't predict their behavior based on what we've seen before. And I think almost 8 or 9 times out of 10 our predictions based on sort of 3 or 4 observations are normally a complete misinterpretation of what's going on. And that's why, one of the reasons why it's so difficult to find them. Let's go and spend a bit of time with these lovely buffalo for a little while. I know they're VM's least favourite animal in the world. Sorry, I frightened it away. It was a raptor. VM immediately started looking for alternatives to the buffalo when I suggested we go and look at them. There was a big bird sitting in the tree here. Sorry about that, VM. Buffalo it is. Lots of dung beetles flying around as well. Warthog, okay, VM, we can look at the warthog. We don't have to look at the buffalo if you want. There we go. Oh, he's gone, VM. Didn't want to be on camera. But I know an animal that does want to be on camera, VM. Just up ahead here. So the warthogs here are surprisingly unconfiding. As I said yesterday, you can go to some lodges where they will be, you know, they'll live on the lawn basically, and they're totally happy with having people around them. Not so much here. Right, let's stop here. The buffalo are grazing right towards us. 2 of them are having a bit of a fight. It's high action at Buffalo Bill's Tavern. I shan't say that again, that's embarrassing. My head's in the way of the oxbow. I'm sorry about that. I'm trying to remain plugged in. You know what happens if I don't stay plugged in? I get into big trouble. This is a really special little herd of buffalo bulls, and they will be heading towards the shade now. It's only 7:30 in the morning here, and the temperature I think is pushing 30 degrees already. And one of the nice ways to compare or convert Fahrenheit to centigrade is to remember that the human body, I think, is at 98 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 36.5 degrees centigrade, so you can remember that. The easiest conversions, of course, are from 28 degrees Celsius is 82, so you just switch the numbers round. And then if I'm not mistaken, there's another one you can do. Oh, 16 degrees Celsius is 61 degrees Fahrenheit. Beautiful buffalo sighting. Now, a little while back, we always tell you that these herds of buffalo are old bulls who are no longer able to keep up with the herd, and so they will drop off the herd, form a little bachelor group where they'll shoot the breeze, talk about better days, eat a lot of grass, lie in the mud, and have a good time. And Eddie, a little while back, we saw a young calf, probably less than a year old, with a little herd of bachelors like this. It's not totally uncommon to find a younger bull, sort of pre his prime, with a herd of buffalo like this, because obviously the youngsters also can't fight for mating opportunities in the herd. But to have found one less than a year old in a group of bachelors like this is unusual. And Eddie, you want to know what happened to that young calf? We don't know, Eddie. It disappeared. Lions weren't around at the time, but I don't know what happened to it. They were quite close to the boundary. I think they were at Juma Dam, which is only about 600 meters. Smelling us now. Ooh. Ooh. It's quite feisty behavior. The rest have just walked past us. And this one's caught a whiff of VM's aftershave and taken offense.
Yeah, I did take a shower.
Yeah, that's why. If you smelt like sweat, I doubt he'd reacted. So, Eddie, just to finish that up, I think he's headed off over the northern boundary, probably. We were quite close to the northern boundary there, and hopefully joined up with the herd. But you know, a youngster in a group like this is going to be pretty well protected. They will not tolerate lions around them, even if the lions are coming for the youngster. They will feel threatened, and these bulls will put up a very good fight against any kind of lion attack. That one is not in great condition. You can see his hips are really sticking out quite badly. I suspect he'll pick up condition quite quickly now that the grass has turned quite green. But he is not very pleased to see us. The rest were totally ignored us. Like this chap next to us, will show you on the right hand side. He's just found a little patch of shade and he's chewing a bit of cud, grazing a bit more, vomiting into his mouth and chewing that again. He's very chilled. Yeah, you can definitely feel that the atmosphere of expectation that kind of begun the day when we were standing on that termite mound has morphed into this kind of soporific heat haze. But it's only 7:30 in the morning. You can see the light is a lot harsher than it was when we started. Now, in terms of the leopard, while we're looking at these buffalo, it won't affect their mating behavior much, except they will tend to move less. And they'll probably find a bit of shade, but the female will continue to try and seduce the male throughout the course of the day. So let's go and have a check-in with Brent quickly. We'll move a little bit forward and check out what's going on in where that drainage line meets the bigger one. And Brent is around there. He'll give you an update on what he's looking at. I'll see you just now.
So the only thing we're finding at the moment is the sunburn. Unfortunately, not much. No more audio. Jean and I sat very still and very quietly for about 10 minutes, trying to pick up another bit of audio. No luck. I don't know what's going on with these mating leopards. They have been giving us an incredibly hard time over the last while. So what we've done is we've moved into this quite big, thick block, and it's the only block no one's checked this morning. So just in case, after that rain, tracks are really hard, quite difficult to see. But fingers crossed. We also got a plan now. If we get no luck here, we're going to head back towards quarantine, and maybe that Ellie bull we saw in the thickets earlier has come out into the open, and we can have a nice visual of him. But unfortunately, so far, no luck with these leopards. But don't worry, we're not giving up yet. Oh. Hello? It's a little spider's nest. They've joined all the leaves together with silk. Doesn't look like this one's in use at the moment. You can see the silk's a little bit broken. Doesn't look like it's been well maintained. Here James has been telling you lots of stories about balloon spiders. They are fascinating creatures. Oh. Just stopping and listening again. You can see how hard it is. I mean, you can see how thick the bush is with the foliage around us. And to give you an idea about how hard it is to track at the moment. So before the rain, this would have been nice, soft and dusty. And you can have a look here. Now, there's a nice open patch there. And if a leopard had walked across, they'd been able to see the tracks quite easily. Now, even if I walk across there, I mean, look at that. You can just see a slight scuff. And my tracks, I've got 100, 200 pounds or so onto 2 feet. They've got less than that, spread over 4 feet. And I've even got these ridges on my shoes that'll stick out. And we're not even seeing my track on that termite mound. Amazing how just a tiny bit of rain can make such a difference with something like that. So what happens is it actually compacts the soil. And that's what makes it very difficult to see tracks. We have some industrious, or have been industrious termites. You can see this is all very fresh workings, probably from last night. I don't want to touch it. I'm quite sure it hasn't set yet. So if I even just nipped it, it would fall apart. And I'm sure those termites have been working so hard. We don't want to do that. Oh, Jean-Andre, if you come around to the other side, there is a jumping spider in this termite mound. And there's a grasshopper. I wonder if he notices the grasshopper. So the jumping spider's in that little hole there. And there's the grasshopper there. And that little jumping spider on the other side. He might go down the hole, so just over there, around the corner, in that little hole. Ferocious little hunters. We had one that lived in our vehicle for a while, and he was trying to help us control the fly population by jumping on the flies as they landed on our dashboard. So we're quite close to quarantine now, so I'm just going to pop out through this thickish bush out onto the open, and maybe that Ellie's moved through from the drainage line. We're still checking for tracks here. Here's a little bit easier to see tracks, but still not much. And it is beastly warm at the moment. Just hoping these leopards might be in this area where no one has checked yet. Ah. Come have a look at this. And come around from this side. Let me get the better angle. There we go. A blue camelina. I know I've showed this. I've shown you guys a blue and a Bengal camelina. And soon hopefully we'll start seeing the yellow camelina as well. And those who remember the story, the two big petals represent two Swedish brothers who made major botanical discoveries, and the tiny little see-through petal underneath represents the brother who was also a botanist, but he died before he could make any large discoveries. But one of the most prominent flowers after first rains, and we'll see blue, Bengal and yellow camelina all over the place. So a very, very pretty one. I always think they look a little bit like elephants, big ears, and then the stamen and staples coming out looking like a trunk and tusks. So trying to check all this mismatch of elephant paths just for one track to set us in the right direction for these leopards. So it's important when you're on foot to use all your senses, not only your eyes, but your ears, your smell. That's how you stay safe. You can smell buffalo, you can smell elephant, you can hear that foot stamp of a buffalo trying to get rid of flies. So all those little tricks are what keep you safe on foot in the bush. Okay, well, it doesn't seem like we've had any luck here. What we're going to do is, so we can move a little bit faster, we're going to send you across to James, who's practicing his driving skills.
Right, we have been around where those leopards we thought were calling. I've pretty much had enough of that. So we're going to head up towards Juma Waterhole, see if there's anything having a drink there. I wonder if the leopards maybe aren't tired after their exertions and they're heading towards that. And then we'll do another loop around, just to make sure. I mean, we could head off to Biffleshoek Dam. I tell you what, we'll put it up to you. If you want to go and have a look at what's at Biffleshoek Dam, send us through a tweet. Otherwise, we'll keep circling around here looking for the leopards. I'm of the impression, and so is Viam, that we should have a wild card, quick trip to Biffleshoek Dam to see if there isn't anything there. These leopards here clearly do not wish to be found. So we'll just go and have a quick look at Juma Dam, see if anything's drinking there, and if not, unless I hear otherwise from you, I'm going to head to Biffleshoek Dam with you, and we'll see what's there. Brent is still around here, so if the leopards do materialize, I'm sure he'll let us know. Well, I know he will. And we did leave those buffalo. They were heading down into the deep shade of the dry riverbed that is the Mrulwati. And a question about how old buffalo can get. Probably in the wild not much more than 16 or 17 years, but probably up to 20. In captivity probably up to about 25 years. Not very old. Hey, bumpy road, yeah. many of you will have seen the horn moth, the keratin-eating horn moth in dead buffalo. Oh, there's that elephant bull. He's come for a drink. Let's watch him drink. That's much better than driving around aimlessly in the blinding heat looking for the leopard. Here comes the elephant. Miss Lynn, you've obviously seen the dead buffalo skulls with the horn moths. They leave their pupa in the keratin. I think you'll find that one of the reasons that buffalo scratch their horns, the tops of their heads so much, is because those moths lay their eggs in the horns while the buffalo is still alive, and they scratch their heads to get them out. So you don't find the actual moths growing, but certainly they do. I'm pretty sure that they lay their eggs there before the buffalo dies. There is an elephant bull. I don't think, is it the same fellow? Yumpy? I think he's a bit smaller than our friend. Anyway, we'll turn and watch him have his drink. Morning coffee. Yeah, he's definitely smaller than the fellow we saw. But that's not to say he's small by any stretch. But I would put him at about 10 years younger than the other guy we saw today. And still the doves sing to the morning. And he's drinking straight out of the pipe that feeds this little pan. Elephants love clean water, as I'm sure many of you have seen before, and he's pulling straight out of the pipe that flows in here. There we go. Now, elephants are highly water dependent species, and Carol, you want to know how often they need to drink? Carol, they need to drink every day. It's very important that they drink every day. And he's just saying to us, don't come any closer, this is my water. He thinks we want some. And they like to drink clean water, but they don't have to. So he could quite easily drink that other mucky stuff next to him. But if he can, he's going to fill his trunk with about, I think it's 5 or 6 litres. It's actually more than that. I think it's 5 or 6 gallons, if I'm not mistaken. A big elephant bull can hold 4 gallons of water in his trunk, so about 20 litres. I'm going to get a huge amount out of that pump, out of the pipe, but he's sucking and sucking and sucking, you can see. Is he's sucking the water that's left in the actual pipe rather than enjoying a fountain. Brent is with another pachyderm. Let's go across to him. He's on quarantine clearings, and we'll wait with this chap, I think, for a little while.
So, isn't it wonderful when a plan comes together? And as you can see over my shoulder, those 2 Ellie bulls, I think the one we saw and the one James saw earlier, have joined, and they've moved from that drainage line where we were tracking the mating leopards, and they now come out into quarantine. They're actually continuing to disassemble that fallen marula that we've had a lot of Ellies go through over the last couple of 10 days or so. And isn't that magnificent? 2 nice big Ellie bulls, completely relaxed. You can see the one still in the shade. You can see their ears flapping. So here we go. Hello, big boy. Here we go. I'm letting them know I'm here so they can hear my voice. I don't want to give them a fright or a surprise. It's a very different scenario from an elephant breeding herd. And these are generally just really nice, old, relaxed gentlemen. Guess these guys are not that old, probably around 30. A bit difficult to see, we are a little bit far away from them. We obviously don't want to disturb them by going too close. Wonderful old gents. So what we can do is move around a little bit, try to get a different angle on them. You'll notice that I'm going to keep talking constantly while we approach these ellies, just so they know where we are and we don't give them a fright. An ellie from North Carolina, oh, it looks like they might come to us, so let's move into a spot where we can sit down. They might just walk past us. Oh, sorry about that. Cindy from North Carolina is wondering whether elephants sneeze. Well, they do. It is quite a funny thing when they do. Well, it looks like, just see where he's going to go so we can judge where we should go. Obviously we don't want to put ourselves in his way. And quite often with these nice big eddy balls, if you get the right angle from where they're walking, you just sit on the ground, they'll just walk past you. They might sort of smell in your direction as they go past. This guy looks like it might be my friend from the last couple of days. It is too. Hello, big boy. So he's got that very distinct little bit of wear on his left tusk, and it's so wonderful. I mean, he's probably been around quarantine area for over a week, and it seems like he's brought a friend with him today. So he's very aware where we are. I mean, I'm talking normally, and an elephant's hearing is so incredibly sensitive that he definitely knows exactly where we are. Also nice and open. He's got lots of escape routes. We've got lots of escape routes. I don't think either of us are going to use any of those. Just judging by his behavior, you can see he's completely relaxed. So when an elephant bull specifically isn't relaxed, or an elephant in general, one of the telltale signs is their tail. It will become very erect. You can see his tail's nice and flaccid and flopping around. And he might, if he does walk a bit closer to us, just lift his head at us. And he's just letting us know he's big and he's strong and he's powerful. And we shouldn't mess with him, and we have no intention to. And normally if they do come a little bit too close, I normally just a stern word and a pointing finger deals with an ellie bull quite well. So another nice important thing about this is that he's come closer to us, we haven't gone closer to him. So he is choosing to come closer to us, we are not forcing ourselves on him. There's something really special about being with these ellie bulls on foot. I mean, just to think, he's probably 3.5 meters at the shoulder. And I mean, so I'm under 2 meters. So he's probably a full. So the top of his shoulder is probably the top of my stick. That's incredible. It weighs probably 6,000 kilograms. And a lot of times the lion is considered the king of the jungle. But in my opinion, it's definitely the elephant bull. If he is in his prime, there's almost nothing that can mess with him. Quite a lot of the ellie bulls we see here don't have the longest tusks, and David from New Jersey is wondering whether we can actually extract DNA from an elephant tusk to sort of then impregnate females and I suppose bring back the long tusk gene. Well, David, the long tusk gene does still exist, and I actually, on my few days away in Kruger, saw some incredibly beautifully big elephant bulls with really nice long tusks, and there are a couple in Kruger that are huge. I mean, tusks much longer than me. So it is around. I'm not sure whether you can extract DNA from a tusk. I mean, you could extract DNA from pretty much everything. If you were to extract DNA from the tusk, it would actually have to be from inside the tusk, from the root canal, and depending on how old that is, and I don't know whether that DNA would have degraded or not. But another area that's still got the long tusk DNA is also northern Zululand. So there are patches of it still around. But I'm not sure if we'd be able to take it out of a tusk that's sitting in a museum and try introduce it into a wild population. We're just going to move a little bit. Sit behind him. And you can see I'm going to keep talking while we do this, just so he knows exactly where we are. Still keep a distance, and remember, same as in a vehicle, very important not to walk straight at an animal. You walk away at angles, so it's non-threatening. So this way we can see the other bull as well. So he's now listening to us. You can see how he stopped moving. But he's still very aware of exactly where we are. As you can see, as his ears stop flapping, he is listening to us. But while we sit here, you see us get off the vehicle and walk around in the bush quite often. Russell says, from California, says when he went on a safari, he was told not to stand up in a vehicle, as it upsets breaks the outline and upsets the animals. Well, Russell, it's a bit different in a vehicle to on foot, and the real reason why the animals get upset when you stand up on the vehicle is often you're quite close to them. So if we were in a game drive vehicle, we probably wouldn't be this far away from the elephants, and what happens is that animals see the bipedal figure of man. Man is the dominant diurnal predator, and basically if you're very close and you stand up, that animal will get a fright because there's now a predator right in its space. But historically, or since in the last couple of 100,000 years while we've been hunting the African savannas, these guys have been a bit out of our range with spears and sticks and bows and arrows, so they don't have that same sort of thing on foot. Most other animals, lions will run away from you during the day on foot. Leopard will try and move away from you. Even impala and zebra, as long as you keep a decent distance, they won't run. But as soon as you start sort of showing predatory behavior and going closer to them, they will run away. And basically, imagine the fact. Let's try to put it in terms. For you, if you were in California and you were walking down Venice Beach, for lack of a better idea, and you suddenly saw someone with a knife but right next to you, or a gun. It's the same principle about standing up in a game drive vehicle. Suddenly there's a potential threat that's within 4 or 5 meters of you. So that's why the animals react negatively to you standing up on a vehicle. And on foot, they'd pretty much probably know you coming before you know they're there. Oh, these guys are so special. They give me a great sense of well-being, big ellie bulls. Like everything's right in the world. Hey, big boy. It's very important to keep your voice calm. You don't want to start sounding stressed or whatnot. The animals will definitely pick up on that tone. I'm just going to sit here, and I'm hoping he might walk towards us as he feeds. So from a distance point of view at the moment, he's probably 35-40 meters. So still quite a big distance, and the wind is coming straight towards us. But in a lot of circumstances, especially when you're walking around elephant breeding herds, you've got to be far more conscious of the wind. With these big bulls, I mean, I've announced my presence. I'm speaking loudly. I'm sitting out in the open. They know exactly where I am, and every now and then you'll see his ears stop flapping. He just wants to listen. And again, he'll be just making sure we're not a potential threat. But again, reading his body language, he's completely relaxed. Very, very special to be able to sit with ellies like this. Oh, you can actually hear, not from this guy closest to us. Oh, he's got an itchy ear. Yeah. A little shake, just reminding us he's big and strong, but he's moving on. And it was amazing, the other bull who's off to the left, you can actually hear him defecating. The thud of the elephant dung falling from that great height almost sends vibrations through the earth all the way to us. But we're going to move around. That other ellie is still going to feed on this combretum. So we're just going to, again, walk oblique angles away. We don't walk directly at animals. It makes them feel threatened. And we're just going to sneak around the bush so we can have another look at him, see what he's been up to. I think he's probably still just feasting on that large fruited bush willow. Quite an interesting one, Jean-Andre, if you can get it. But you can just see his feet in the darkness, or in the shade under the tree there. Really. That massive animal has disappeared, and we can just see the feet and a few branches moving. Okay, let's walk on. So this does look like my new best friend, who's been on quarantine for quite a while. There he is. Hello, big boy. He's playing peekaboo with us behind the bush. And Lisa's wondering, do I think he could be used to my voice by now, since I've been spending so much time with him? Lisa, if I have to be completely honest, I can't be 100% sure. But I do think just your general tone of voice and things like that make a big difference, and your just general demeanor. I think the animals can pick up on if you're not relaxed. He's walking on, as I was going to hope. He's going to walk out into the open just here now. There he is. Hello, big boy. Hello, big boy. So he's listening to us, just keeping an eye on it. From here, we probably won't try to follow him too much. I mean, he is relaxed, and I'd love to keep him that way, so there's no need to just carry on walking closer and closer. I mean, we have such a great sighting from this distance. There's no need to push that envelope. And I'd rather have him nice and relaxed and only having positive memories of people on foot. Hello, big boy. I think he's going to have a little scratch around there. There's some, I remember from walking a few days ago, there's quite a lot of asparagus that's sprouting up underneath those silver cluster leaves, and we have seen how much ellies like those fresh asparagus shoots. Wild asparagus, of course, not, and it is edible for people, but only the new shoots. It becomes very, very bitter as it gets older. And the ellies also like those new, fresh, succulent baby wild asparagus shoots. And during the heat of the day, it's between final control and our camp and that, before I went away, we would often find him with his head resting against one of these marulas, having a snooze in the middle of quarantine, and it's so wonderful to have him around. I'm not sure that Jim Reams, who looks after all the water pipes at Djuma, would agree, and we did see him remove the protection from the little the pipe over the water hole, and he now has access to the pipe, which he actually sucks nice clean water out of directly, rather than drink the muddy stuff that's available to everyone else. See, running around, sniffing around the base of all the trees, looking for nice fresh, asparagus shoots, or probably some little acacias coming out there, as well as little raisin bushes. Actually, looks like he's on his way to final control now. So, I think he might be heading down towards the Djuma waterhole as well, but he's going very slowly. And because we're on foot, Boyd, who's in North Carolina, is wondering, well, we're going to leave him be. We're just going to have another look at the other guy who's still feeding. Is wondering, what's the most curious animal on foot? Well, Boyd, that's a very, very interesting question. It very much depends. But I would have to say one of the most curious animals on foot is a young male leopard, especially around that sort of 6-7 month age. And other than that, I would say, very interesting question. I need to think about this a little bit. And we're just going to head up towards this termite mound, and you can see there's that other ellie bull who's busy destroying a marula tree, the one that fell down probably about 2 weeks ago now, or 10 days ago. Ellie bulls can be curious about people on foot as well, but not as much as, say, a young male leopard. But dwarf mongoose also can be quite curious. But probably the most curious, and that's because they have evolved alongside us, and they have evolved to scavenge off us, is hyenas. See, not going to be much left of that fallen marula with these bulls around. Incredible seeing those ears flap in 8 liters, nearly 2 pints of blood in the elephant's ears at any one time. And all that network of veins cooling down the blood as the warm blood pumps in the cooled blood heading through to the rest of the body. And it's an incredible thermoregulation system. If you think about it, an elephant is, apart from human beings, is one of the only animals that can move around in the absolute heat of the day. and it's big and it's dark, so all the things you shouldn't be if you don't want to overheat, but it's just amazing that they're able to cool so much through their ears. Obviously spraying a bit of mud and water on them also helps, but the main thing is those ears. A big dark object in this beating African sun should be hot all the time, but it's amazing how they've adapted that specialized cooling system, and they're able to walk through the hottest time of the day. So, ellie bulls are fantastic in many ways, but as fathers go, they're not the best. So Michael's wondering, do they hang around and raise the baby elephants? They don't, Michael. They like to spend a lot of their time by themselves or in little bachelor groups. They will only go and mate with a female when she's an estrus, and they're a must. Once they've finished mating, that's pretty much the end of their parental care. And they'll move off, and they like to spend time like this, 2 or 3 bulls, sometimes even a bull by himself, wandering around. They don't really like the hustle and bustle of a big breeding herd, all the noise and young bulls running around and trumpeting and screaming, and those big ellie herds are very noisy, so they much prefer to spend sedate time away, no rush in feeding, no competition in feeding, and they just slowly move around the area. They will sometimes join up with the breeding herds even when they're not in must, but generally not for very long before they continue on and live a life as a bachelor. The other ellie looks like he's going towards final control. Let's go see if he goes to say hello to the ladies there. And actually, a very interesting thing from our sunrise fireside chat the other day, there is an elephant leg bone sitting over there, so maybe he might go have a look at it. So I think we're going to go head there. No, it looks like he's walking right past it. But let's have a look here. This is where he just was, around the base of these cluster leaves, and try to see what he was eating. So I definitely think he was after little fresh asparagus shoots. Well, we can't see what it was, because it looks like he pulled the whole plant out. So you can just see loose dust here and soil where he's taken whatever was growing here, roots and all. I think it was asparagus. I thought in my binoculars I could see some asparagus down here. And he's gone. They like to grow in a little bit of shade, so they've literally moved from the shady spot to shady spot, seeing what he can find. And it seems really impossible, because he's eating tiny little plants there, and he needs to eat about 200 to 250 kilograms of vegetable matter in a day. It's over 400 pounds. But he does like those little tasty morsels, and he will bulk up on other stuff like the bark of the marula and the branches of that fallen marula and the bush willows we've seen him feeding on. Trying to see where he's gone. Oh, there he is. So, right near the fireside chat spot, and looks like he's moved onto a marula to have a little doze. He's quite far away from us now, but he might stop under one of these big trees to have a snooze. So we're going to move back to try to get a little bit closer to him, and while we do that, we're going to go see what James is up to, and we'll be back with you a little bit later.
So we're coming to the end of the drive. You're having a wonderful experience with Brent on foot, which of course is the best way to experience the bush if you want an intimate wilderness experience. Now, I can actually see the elephant. We'll just stop here. I don't want to disturb them. So we'll stop here. I can just see where the elephant is. You won't be able to see it from where you're sitting. Just a quick one for me, just before I say goodbye. Virtual Tourist wants to know how on earth it's possible that I can perch on my seat and drive. Does it take special training? Virtual Tourist in Texas? No, it doesn't take special training. I haven't ever fallen out of the vehicle. That's not to say it won't happen. It just takes quite a lot of concentration. You know, we drive so much around here that you get pretty used to the cars after a while. And then Afira, you have come to South Africa a few times, you say, and you say that the greeting that you've heard people use is Dumela. And you want to know why I'm using the one that I use, which is a sort of general hello, ahe. It's because Dumela is a totally different language from the language spoken here. There are 11 official languages in South Africa, 2 of them European, so one of them is Afrikaans, and in Afrikaans you'd say Goeiemorgen, another one is Xhosa. In Xhosa you'd say Molo or Molweni. In Zulu you'd say Sawubona. In Venda, I don't know what you'd say. In Pedi and Sotho and Tswana you'd say Dumela or Dumelang, depending on how many people there were. And in this area you'd say Avusheni or Ae, which means how are you doing. So that's why there's been a difference. I suspect you've probably been on the Highveld around the Waterberg when you've been around here, and that's where they will use the Tswana greeting, Dumela. There you go, Afira. Right, we're going to hand you back to Brent now. Quick thank you to all of you for your questions and comments. I will see you this afternoon. Thank you, VM. Nice to have you back on the hot seat, as it were. And a big thanks to Tara, of course, and Jerry in the final control. I'm going to hand you back to Brent, and we'll see you a bit later. Bye-bye.
So we decided for the last little bit of show, rather than try catch up with the other bull who's actually gone quite far, we just heard this breaking of branches as this bull is completely breaking apart that fallen marula. And we did go through quite a long period where we didn't have a lot of big ellie bulls around, and as I said, they do move quite vast areas sometimes. So it's nice. I mean, I think there's 3 in this area on quarantine at the moment, including my good friend who's on his way to final control. And they do have this incredible air of calm about them. And I think that helps when you sort of 9 to 11 foot at the shoulder and weigh 6,000 kilograms. This guy's a little bit younger than the other one we had a look at. And it's not uncommon to have different aged bulls moving together, and quite often they're called askaris, which is the old Swahili word for basically guards, and especially when a big bull gets really old, he's often got these younger bulls, these askari bulls that will move around with him. I'm happy as Larry. I love spending time with ellie bulls, and double love heading time with ellie bulls on foot. It is a very, very special thing, and we're very, very fortunate to be able to do that. But thanks very much for all your questions today, guys. It's been great having me out here. I'm so excited to be back and so excited to be on foot, and I can't wait to get out again, the Sunset Safari. So don't forget to join us on the Sunset Safari, and we'll see you later.